So let me ask you this. What is happening in Hollywood? A weak person cannot get to sit here and talk to you. Ain't no weak people talking to you. So what is happening in Hollywood? Nobody knows. The worst thing to call somebody is crazy, is dismissive. I don't understand this person, so they're crazy. That's bullshit. These people are not crazy, they're strong people. Maybe the environment is a little sick.
It's not that deep, bro. We're just hot off the heels of the Kanye West Joe Rogan episode.
Nothing of what he said made me feel uncomfortable. It was said in such a weird way that it sounded like bullshit, right? But that is his own way.
So let's unpack that.
Yeah.
So the way that he said it made it sound like bullshit.
Yeah, but because I don't necessarily understand everything he just said.
So that then is a communication issue, and it's actually completely separate from what he said. Like, if you don't understand what he said, then you can't like even begin to have an opinion on it, sort of thing. Which is why I say doing.
But what's my opinion?
A podcast on this. Well, your opinion can be whatever you want it to be, but you have to understand what's being. Yeah, because you just said you don't understand what's being said. So that's why doing this podcast right now, I think, is
but that's how dynamic.
Because no, I'm not talking about me and you. I'm talking about a large percentage of people that just heard that are gonna be in your camp.
Yeah.
And are gonna the delivery of what he said. It doesn't matter what he was saying. He could have been saying like Joe's contributions to that podcast were simply breaking down what he said and just letting people know that what he was saying was actually a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. Now we've just watched it, and it's 3 hours long, and it was mostly Kanye talking in one long stream of consciousness. People aren't used to seeing that, and there's a lot of information in that. So it's one of those things where all the headlines tomorrow and on Monday are going to be about how he said it, and isn't he crazy that he spoke for that long, and all the rest of it. But the focus will not be on what the man spoke about, because if you write down what the man spoke about, it's a plan for a better world than the one we currently live in. And they cannot risk for that to be, if you bullet pointed everything the man said, like strip away the way that he wraps it up, you can't argue with it. Like, and it will take people time to, I know this because I've seen the man talk at length. You know, there's many interviews, and if you actually listen to what he says and not the emotion, you completely understand that he's not got his heart out to hurt people.
Right.
So
what within this podcast?
So this is the podcast now.
Is it? What are you recording?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Have been since the beginning.
Go on.
This is how these stream of consciousness things work,
right.
Mine.
Yeah. I just saw it for 3 hours long. So yeah, I get it.
I could continue to listen to that until I fall asleep. Like, I'm not done at 3 hours.
You're not done at 3 hours. You'll watch it.
I could have
re-listen to it.
I will be re-listening to this.
Oh, fair enough.
Like 100%. And I think anyone that came away from listening to that feels like they didn't want to re-listen to it, didn't understand what was being said. Now, that makes me sound like I'm being superiorist and looking down or making fun of people that don't want to re-listen to it. But I only say this because I have read books and watched films before that I thought were absolute nonsense. Like, I just dismissed them as worthless. The person that made them was trying to confuse me. It was some sort of trick. I've wasted money. What a fool I was. So then...
You told me that before.
Yeah, but I don't know if I've told the listeners this. So I, put the book down and I didn't read it and I just cast it off, didn't think about it again. A year later, I see the book on the shelf and I think, well, there were some interesting ideas in there, and although I didn't completely get the idea, I'd like to understand what the person was trying to say, because I don't believe that people make things to confuse people, and if they do, then that's like a dick move, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But generally, people are saying and doing things for a reason, either a good reason or a bad reason. So that it's either a 50-50 split. It's actually pretty simple. So to then go back and read that book that I didn't understand, but every time I got to a bit that I didn't understand, I get the old phone out or the dictionary and give myself some context on it, and then the picture becomes clearer in my head and I can continue with what this person's trying to say to me. 8-9 times out of 10, the person isn't insane and they're actually trying to say something, and I missed it. And it took me 365 days or more, you know what I mean? More. There's stuff out there right now that I know that's happening with me. And it's the reason I started this podcast, because I saw people around me watching, consuming things and not understanding them and being confounded as to why was that so bad? Why? It must just be for money. They're doing it all for some sort of big plot against me. Mm-hmm. And that is the case sometimes, but my point that I'd like to make, I suppose, this episode on It's Not That Deep, Bro, that if you do find yourself listening to the Joe Rogan Kanye West, please, before you condemn the man, work out if you understand what he's trying to say. Because I feel like that was the most honest time we've ever been able to hear the man speak. And if it doesn't, he's tried to get this message across before, and he'll stop trying eventually, and you won't have to bother about the man, but his heart's in the right place. That's how I feel about it.
So, what did you get from what he said? What bits did you pick out from your first listen?
For me, that was as I say, I've listened to all the Zane Lowe interviews he's done. He's done several long-form interviews before where he's expressed similar ideas to what he expressed in this podcast, namely the infrastructures that have been set up for the past 250 years are designed to facilitate the growth of capitalism and big business and keep money going. He made the great point that money's not even backed by gold anymore, so the original thing that it was set up to represent doesn't exist anymore, so what are we doing? People laugh at me in my real life for saying this, especially in the coronavirus financial crisis that we're in, but just print more money. And that is what has been happening during the coronavirus thing, with a load of words attached to it and a load of we've had to do this and it's been very difficult to print more money. We've had to shift things around to print more of this paper. Yeah. So it's very general stuff like that. It's not even just Kanye, it's not even this man that has come up with these ideas. It has been the spearhead of counterculture since the 1960s with the first wave of musicians. And he then goes to talk about, his psychiatric experiences and how he was always pushed in the direction of taking more and more medication, and it's very easy to get bogged down in each celebrity's individual case of this drug addiction, and it makes it look like a personal thing on them. he ties that in again to like the record industry and how they make it so you don't own any of your music, but you make your money from touring, but it's touring that wears you out and burns you out, and gets you on drugs and partying and all of that, because it's like the show lifestyle. That's like, there you go, that's evidence of what he's saying, that the infrastructures that have been, you know, the entertainment industry is a large part of society today, and that whole industry is set up so the people that are in it don't own what they make, and they eventually burn themselves out and die. That is the same as the 9-to-5 work system of the lower and middle class. You don't own any of the shit you make it for someone else, it wears you out, and then you die. And it sounds bleak, but this is stuff that like most rock stars that aren't cocaine-addled alcoholics manage to work out through having the faculties and money and opportunities that show business presents them with, if they can see through the shitstorm of consumerism that gets thrown their way. And that is why this strain of thought exists in creative circles and things like that.
Sound like Kanye, bro.
I've just
on and on.
Heard the man talk enough to understand what he's trying to say, and it's not that difficult. It's
not that deep, bro.
It is not that deep, bro, Martin.
It's not that deep.
Definitely. But
to be honest,
you talk.
Yeah, talk, please. Nah, to be honest, like, this is probably the first Joe Rogan when I watched it, and I've sort of thought, like, Joe isn't. I don't like some of the questions that Joe was asking. He didn't sort of like answer properly. Like, to me, one of the questions that Joe asked was what would you do differently?
So that was at the very beginning of the podcast, and we were watching it. That was something that Jordan pointed out outside. Again, it's going to take time for people to unpack this podcast and let them make it into 10-15 minute videos that will go viral on Facebook, you know what I mean, and let it spread through to the other social medias. But about in between 2 and 3 hours into that podcast, they got into talking about how Kanye talks and how he can. They kept using the word rifting on there. I go on rifts on different things.
I liked how he would like go into song or into rap, so sometimes in the middle of a conversation, like, all of a sudden he's just constantly thinking of different
creative
ideas.
things.
Yeah, but all at the same time while you're talking at the same as well. Like.
The point is that this is the first time that man has been allowed to speak long enough for you to see that just because he didn't answer people, this is difficult. I've witnessed this, and that's why it's difficult to talk about. People hate anything that isn't like the shortest answer that can possibly be to get to the point. And I think if I really have to unpack it and think about it, people that think like that feel like they're being shortchanged in life. They feel like they're being screwed over somehow. And you need to get to the point right now, because I don't have time for you to waffle. I don't need to hear what you have to say. Like, give me the basic information, because what you have to add, all the frilly bits, not for me, mate. Not today. So that's how like a good portion of like people operate on a day-to-day, which is like, I understand there's a lot of nonsense out there, and we've all been burnt many times. That, you know, everyone is so terrified about having egg on their face and like ending up in this hypothetical situation where they're like, oh no, the worst thing I imagined has happened and I can't believe it. But that rarely happens. If that does happen, then learn from it and don't let it happen again. But it's not the end of the world, and you move on, and that's like called learning. But people are scared to let that failure happen. What was your question?
It wasn't a question. I was talking about how he didn't answer.
Oh, he didn't answer the thing. So
that first question.
Letting him speak at this length and having Joe just to clarify every now and then what he actually means and his emotional intent allows you to see. And there's this beautiful point where Kanye was like, "But you see, we've been talking like for 40 minutes. But I'm bringing it back around to the point. This is the bit that you wanted at the beginning of the conversation. Just because I've spoke for 40 minutes didn't mean that none of what I said was connected to the overall picture.
Wasn't connected to the overall picture. You just struggle to see the picture that I'm painting. Yeah. Basically. That is... That's the disconnect, and that... He brings it back round to...
Eventually, and that's why the Joe Rogan Experience, I suppose, would be the correct format for him to talk.
I mean, couldn't the man just make a... Like, he does have lots of rants on, like, Twitter and stuff, but couldn't he just make a video of him talking about, or answering questions from fans, or...
But...
Like, all these ideas that he has in his head, wouldn't it be just better to just make a video of himself saying all these ideas?
He has, though. Like, okay, 2016, me and my good friend Jack Suffolk went to the Life of Pablo release stream at the cinema. And at that stream, he laid out...
Didn't we go to that as well?
No, it was me and Jack. We lived at 104. Yeah. And I had my broken leg and we were late and I had to run and I had crutches and it was the whole thing. But we were there, and there was like no one in the cinema, as there is at all these Kanye events that I go to. There's like never anyone there, and it's like Jesus is King. It was just us and like two other dudes in the cinema. Yeah. And he laid out pretty much what he was talking about in that interview, like Donda, a company named after his mother, and he had this whiteboard, and it had. Housing, video games, infrastructure. This was way before he was talking about being president. It was 2016, so nearly 5 years ago at this point. And it had all this, and he was just a musician at that point. The Yeezy thing was kind of happening. Life of Pablo has facts on it, and he's talking about going from Adidas to Nike on that song. So it was at that time. So he was
Nike to Adidas.
Yeah, Nike to Adidas. So he was making shoes at that point. But he wasn't doing the Sunday service thing, wasn't happening, and he was seen differently. But all the stuff he spoke about that he's now trying to put into place at building cities, I've known about this for a long time, and I was psyched about it then. Like when I saw that whiteboard, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's mad!" Like his vision is huge. He debuted a video game at that thing. A trailer for a video game that's still not come out. He was talking about, I've known that Yeezys are meant to be in Walmart since Yeezys came about, because I was listening when he released Yeezys, instead of being like, he's trying to take over the shoe world and tweet and doing all this stupid stuff. I just read the press release and moved on with my life, and I was like, that's what Kanye West is doing at the moment. Cool. So I don't know the man. Why would I get emotional over it? Like, I have a lot to say about the man, because the man does a lot, but actually, I'm just paying attention to what he says and what he's doing. And I think it's great. The key statement from that whole thing that I'd take away is spatial engineering based on faith can change the world. Spatial engineering, well, what are spaces? Everything's a space. Spaces are where things happen. Engineering of spaces, so changing things that are in spaces based upon faith and not fear, was the context of how he was saying it, and how he had a great analogy about how from walking from if you draw a line on the floor and tell someone to walk on the line, they're going to be able to do it fine. But then when we put a tightrope up on two buildings and remove the pavement from around it, all you think about is falling.
Yeah.
That's like how we're all sick. Like,
and he's talking about the children. That the children would, if you take that away from like the buildings that he was making, if you take the screens away, put tightrope, that if you had children, they would just
run across it.
Yeah,
they'd just be fine because they have the innocence. And the system is designed to instill the fear. The fear is designed to make you stop wanting to go outside and be scared of everything. And it's the Matrix. It's like this whole thing. It's why I'm doing this podcast. It's quite like, it's quite important. And so that the man's message gets lost in the delivery is disappointing to one. Especially, I think it's so sick. This isn't the first Kanye West interview that I have listened to in a room with people that aren't particularly as enthusiastic about Kanye as I am. And it's always...
Jordan and Prager.
No, not even, it's not even that. It's I'm just very enthusiastic and know what I'm in for, sort of thing. It's like I've been waiting for this since I knew it was a possibility that the two people knew each other, and it's finally come and it's been good. But there's been a couple of times, Zane Lowe interviews and stuff, when I've been with people, and we were meant to watch a film tonight, but because this was on, we've done this.
Yeah, because you're so, Kanye.
Well, I've been in positions before where I've been with people and it's like, well, I'm doing this now, and you can listen, but I'm doing this. And I get the same response every time. Oh, crazy, and all the same words. If I had to make a mood board of the words that get thrown at me, because I don't really listen anymore, I just pick the ones out that I've heard before. Crazy, idiot, God, can't rap, all of that. And it's like, I'm getting the same old spiel. It doesn't matter though, because Kanye's about to talk for 3 hours, so I'd have to listen to that. But after about 40 minutes, and they simmer down, and the feedback dies down, and they actually let a few of the words that the man is saying in, they're like, he's like on the ball, like he cares and is passionate and just has man's general betterment at his heart.
So do you think other artists don't have that?
No, but he's certainly the loudest. And in a world where we're going, you can't look left or right. We've got Attenborough documentaries, we've got billionaires being paid. It's all. You're not a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist anymore to say that the system is rigged against us and all of that. That's common knowledge at this point. The tinfoil hat people knew that in the 70s and the 80s and were called idiots. How long do we have to live in this society where we call everyone idiots until they're right? And that's another thing that he said in that. You're crazy until you're right. And he's just living this life where all he has to do is listen to the people that tell him he's crazy and what he can't do, and then he just writes down what they say on a bit of paper, or they say, I can't do that, so now that's the thing I'm going to do. And then they're the crazy ones. And people can be like, that's a bad way to live your life, but he's doing okay. So, as the song goes, you can't tell him nothing.
Fair enough. So
that's my
he's
stance.
gonna become president, is what you're saying.
He reckons 2024. We'll see what this podcast for him, the Joe Rogan, not this podcast. This podcast is going to do nothing. There's a small group of people are going to listen to this specific podcast, and hopefully
you can still see that he's a
few of them pay attention. But that podcast, the Joe Rogan one, I hope it does a lot for his presidential campaign this time round. And even at the beginning of the conversation, Joe said, why don't you be like the governor first? Give people some something. You were the governor. That at least makes sense that he could be the president in people's eyes. We're not in America. I don't have a stake in this battle. I'm just passionate about the man and enjoy seeing him speak his mind. And if he was president, I imagine he'd be allowed to do that a fair bit more.
Have you seen like his little arrogant jabs? Oh, you get 300 million viewers. Now with me here, you get 900.
Well, let's see.
What?
Well, if he does get 9 million viewers, then the man was right and you can't tell him nothing. But we'll see if that happens.
We'll see.
It's not like a crazy thing. Like, that's not an outrageous statement. It only sounds outrageous because you don't know anyone else that could do that.
No.
If you were in a world where people could do that, you'd be like, oh, yeah, he can do that because I know him and I've seen him do things like that before.
No, I feel like it's just more the numbers. I don't feel like there's... Like, I feel like Joe is quite high in, like, ratings when it comes to, like, people watching him. For it to go 3 times what he normally gets.
There's certain people that go on the Joe Rogan Experience and you just know that it's going to, like, be explosive. Alex Jones, Elon Musk, Kanye West, it falls under that bracket. And, you know, Elon Musk went on and smoked a joint and made Tesla stock prices crash. Kanye West, it's basically been a meme, the idea of this whole interview anyway. So
everything that I tell you, I shit you not, the amount of memes that'll come out of this.
Oh God, it's going to be wild. But that is why the nectar and the actual center of it won't get pierced.
Yeah.
Won't get like stabbed into for weeks. And that's why I want to get this podcast down now. Because I know this. This is what the man was saying. You can laugh. Like, all this stuff's going to come. Or like, I'm sure there's going to be headlines. But what the man's saying at the heart of it, is unfuckwithable. I think. I genuinely believe that.
I'll wait to see it to believe it. Get what I'm saying?
As I say, we don't live in the country.
No.
Don't have any sort of stake in this battle.
No, of course not, no.
It's more of, do you want the world to be a better place, I suppose? That's the question.
And do you think that Kanye West will bring that better place?
I do believe he'll try.
Yeah, he will try, but
do I think he can do it?
Yeah.
Well, no one's ever done that, mine. So that's like a crazy question. If there was someone that I wanted was going to put in the spot, I'd want him on the team. Like, I'd want him in
superhero material.
Yeah, I've seen him do like enough at this point in music to like justify that being said. Like, definitely. Or just, he's like the best artist. He's an elite functioning being.
You're gonna
along with
what he said, that he's the biggest genius alive.
As I say, I agree with the man's way of being. Mm-hmm. I think that it's like sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Well, it seems in 2020 that sticks and stones don't really matter anymore, and words really hurt everyone.
Yeah, stupid.
So,
getting butthurt because somebody said a different word that you don't want.
Yeah, he may have said things that is like, you're not helping yourself there. But all the people that I like, dig, are people that are misunderstood in the way that they express themselves, I suppose. Because I think there's nothing, I suppose if you want to get real psychoanalyst about it, it's something to do with me having a problem with the way that I express myself. It's ironic that I couldn't get the words out and I'm talking about struggling to express myself. So I completely think that it's heartbreaking for myself to know that I have a positive outlook and I only want good things for people, but due to the way that I come across and present myself, that can be misconstrued due to many number of things, sort of thing.
You're the next Kanye, bro.
That's not. I'm Jack Ølund.
Yeah, but you can be.
And we live at the same time, and he will be who he is, and I'll be who I am.
Yeah.
There's no.
But why can't you come together as a collective?
Well, that would be a wonderful surprising, hypothetical situation at the moment is what that is. At the moment, we are MIPLTD and me and mine.
You gotta think big, bro. Think big.
Well,
straight away now. Like, he's not thinking small, is he? And you admire the man, so you shouldn't be thinking small, it should be big.
Well, next week on the podcast, we'll have Kanye West on.
Then, if it happens, it will happen.
But
right? We'll tag him in everything we do right now. Maybe he'll come on the podcast. He'll watch a film with us. Borat too. Do a podcast with us. Like, you don't know what could happen next week. You don't know.
tell it, man.
Tell it, man. To who?
The people. You were shelling. You were laying it down.
There's nothing else to say. I've already said everything I need to say.
That's the law, man.
That is the law.
Boom.
Boom. If we have Kanye West, it's because Destiny wanted us to have Kanye West on. Woo! That's right.
You see. So, yeah, this has been it's not that deep, bro, with a bit of a difference, bit of a different tone, but we will always keep up with the ongoings of Mr. West here, regardless of his presidential efforts.
That's right. No matter how much I don't want to.
But, you know, we played two very important roles here, Martin. You know, if it was just me on my own in the room going off about how much I love Kanye, that wouldn't work for me, would it? That's not a good podcast.
No. I mean, yeah, again, like the same with movies. I bring the perspective of somebody who's not in your head or cannot read the situation or cannot read what the man is trying to say as well as other people can, or he can.
It's like coffee and cream.
What?
Boy, what a team.
Is that a lyric of somehow?
It's like bread and butter. You know what I mean?
No.
We both work well together. That's what I think.
Okay, so it's like peanut butter and jam.
I think they call it jelly.
What? Peanut butter jelly?
Time.
What the fuck are you on about? It's jam. What are you on about? Peanut butter jelly time?
You can let him know, folks. Next time
on the It's Not That Deep, bro. Do you know where to follow us? Instagram. Fucking hit that MIPLTD.org. MIPLTD on the YouTube. Give me some shit on the iTunes. Let's go. Bring it on.
The Mystery School on Reddit.
The Mystery School on Reddit.
One word. The Mystery School. You search it.
We got everything going on.
Peace.
Peace.
Ain't nothing to it. Just wading through it. Yeah. Well, don't leave your mind soaking. When there's a better you on the other side. And if you need to find it, well, it's right there where all your fears and worries hide. So you can spend your life wasting your time, or meet me where the grass is much you